What do you wish you had known before you entered into relationships? Or you can take it from a mom's point of view. What's the one thing you're going to make sure that your son understands about love and relationship before he has his first date?
So one thing that's pretty interesting in our household, I guess I'll say, I found that when I left, I didn't have the language to put to things. I couldn't evaluate my childhood. I would say the only one term that I ever thought of was broken home, because I grew up when parents were starting to get divorced, and my parents got divorced, and it was very weird, and nobody knew what to do about it. Now, there's a lot of divorce. You know, the school system knows what to do. We have processes now. This is normal. Not that I love that, but there is something about, I knew that idea of a broken home, and that kind of kept me from wanting to raise my kids in a broken home that was so utterly broken. It was well beyond repair, but it didn't mean that I was out there trying to make it unbroken for them. And that was about the only term I knew, but I couldn't go back and look at codependency. I couldn't go back and really understand what self-awareness, self-evaluation was. I couldn't go back and understand what a sociopath was, what a narcissist was, what fed them, what drove them. I didn't understand, being an empath. I didn't understand how all of these factors play in together. I didn't know what the cycle of abuse was. I didn't know what to expect, what to look for. So in our house, we talk a lot. I have two boys, guys. I have an 11-year-old and a 4-year-old. If you want to know how much they love me talking to them, it is next to none. But at the end of the day, we want to make sure that when the time comes that we give them the right language to it. So, right now it might just be good and bad, and they might not understand why. Or it might just need validation, because your kids will tell you, hey, this is happening in relationships with their peers. We think that intimate partner violence is all about making sure they're ready for dating. It's making them ready for relationships. They can have toxicity in any and every relationship they run into. And sometimes you'll see it with people who are more authoritative than them. You'll see it in people in position. You'll see it in their peers. Just have those conversations. When they say that's not right, is it not right? And give them a little bit as to why. There's nothing wrong with validating their feelings, but that's what I felt like I was missing. I wish I had that language. I wish I had something that could help me identify, because when I finally was trying to identify what was wrong in my relationship, it was me, because I couldn't keep my home from falling apart. And that, for some reason, fell on my shoulders to make sure it didn't happen. And it completely blinded me from the brokenness that was there. I think we should just really focus on, again, sometimes the language. Maybe you don't go tell my 11-year-old that he's being codependent or that he has codependent tendencies. They're not there yet, but we can evaluate relationships as they evaluate them to us. And if we can build those relationships, I think that's what ends up protecting them in the end, or at least gives them the opportunity to recognize what's happening when it's happening. Because I don't know that we can ever protect them from getting into the bad relationships ever. I think that the quicker they recognize, the better off we all are.
Yeah, you're not going to get rid of the fact that it exists out there, but we do have the ability to get into their hands, which I didn't have in my hands. It doesn't sound like you did. The ideas of recognizing red flags, understanding what a healthy relationship even looks like, what it works like. And you're right. It starts with them coming home talking about the bully in their classroom, or the friend that used to be a friend that now is being mean to them. Those kinds of things are all precursors to understanding how people become abusive, show abusive tendencies. It doesn't mean everyone's a narcissist. We don't start creating boogeymans in every corner, but we are all a little bit narcissistic. We can kind of identify them, like you said, using language that's appropriate. That's really good. I think that's a good example.
I would add too, watching how we argue with our kids, because unfortunately we do. We're going to have frustrations, and we're an open to conflict family. Conflict gets resolution. So we don't sweep a whole lot under the rug. But pay attention when you argue with your kids, because you can start to see, especially if you're co-parenting with somebody who has been abusive to you or has some of those tendencies, you'll see it right away. You'll see how they argue and how they resolve. And the more that we can keep our wits and not focus on the fact that, oh my gosh, I know where this is coming from, and I know that this is what they're learning, is once I left, I got to have a say in that parenting too. And you do too. It doesn't always feel like it. We don't always win in court. I think you've said something like that. It's not always that big war. It's the battle. We take the little wins, and we take and roll with punches, because the justice is not always what's going to happen. But what I'm not going to let happen is me ignore what's happening within my child. And I know that there's so many factors that we don't control, but I control my interaction with them. And that's where I think there's a good focus.
Yeah, that's right. The truth is, and it doesn't always end well, but generally you can have that same thing going on in any family dynamic, that a child will have a will at some point, but you can do the best you can do. And as a parent of adults now, I can tell you that there's a comfort in knowing that you did your very best, no matter how things go. That you have a very realistic approach, and I think we need much more of that. More people that are willing to talk about the struggles and willing to talk about the fact that it can be messy. And that's